All right, we'll start getting started here now. Um, Again, I'm Mike Mckenzie. I do the land investing here, teaching that class, and I will say we've had a lot of fun doing it, and I continue to have a lot of fun doing it. And the great thing is, we're actually going to start at the beginning again, go through each and everything that's important to not only build your business, but to grow your business. And we'll kind of dissect everything in the next couple months on how that's going to happen. Some of the big things that I will tell you is that no two presentations I've ever done are the same. They are always a little bit different. So you're not going, if you've seen part of it, you're not, it'll be a little bit different. I always try to add things that are going on present day, and that may change by the week, month, or year, or however. I try to always add present day examples, and we're going to get into more examples and a little deeper in some things as we go through this training this time. So I'm looking forward to it. Very thankful and appreciate. Hey, this is Mike. We'll get started here in a couple minutes, just letting some people jump on, and I've got to pull up a file here, but we'll give it a couple minutes. People will jump on, and then we will get started. All right, we'll start getting started here now. Again, I'm Mike Mckenzie. I do the land investing here, teaching that class, and I will say we've had a lot of fun doing it, and I continue to have a lot of fun doing it. And the great thing is we're actually going to start at the beginning again, go through each and everything that's important to not only build your business, but to grow your business. And we'll kind of dissect everything in the next couple months on how that's going to happen. Some of the big things that I will tell you is that no two presentations I've ever done are the same. They are always a little bit different. So you're not going, if you've seen part of it, you're not, it'll be a little bit different. I always try to add, things that are going on present day, and that may change by the week, month, or year, or however. I try to always add present day examples. And we're going to get into more examples and a little deeper in some things as we go through this training this time. So I'm looking forward to it. Very thankful and appreciative for those of you who have joined us. If you have questions during the presentation, you certainly ask me. If not, we'll definitely have a question and answer session at the end, and we'll go from there. I'm gonna make sure that I have all of you to where you can say something if you want to. All right. All right, so I got you guys now. And so we'll get started. Let me share my screen. That's the best way for me to do it. So again, we're talking about land and investing in land, and some of the cool things about investing in land is we want to go over everything. When I say the ABCs of remote land investing, I literally mean every part and aspect of land. I want you to have a good intimate knowledge of it all. Why do we invest in land? We're going to talk about it. Personally, I've done everything. I've done mobile home parks. I've done single family, multifamily, fix and flips, some commercial stuff. I'm currently developing some property where we're going to put a self-storage unit, and we're also looking at purchasing a long-term care facility. So I've done a lot of different things in real estate, and quite frankly, the land aspect of it is my foundation, and it's the part probably I like the best. It's where I have the most fun. It's what keeps my business going. Everything else in my business could fail, but the land will keep everything running. So that's kind of like my bread and butter, if you will. So let's talk about why investing in land. Well, there's less competition. It's overlooked by a lot of investors. Now, I will say, and I have students that they'll get frustrated sometimes. They'll say, well, the person I mailed a letter to has gotten other offers on their property. There obviously are other people doing land also, but I'll tell you, I own some vacant land, and I own one or two other houses that are free and clear. So I kind of did a comparison. I probably get, I don't know, 7, 8 to 1 letters, 7 or 8 more letters to the 1 letter on land than I do houses. So I'm getting mailed 8 times more on my vacant house than I am on my vacant land. So that tells me that there's obviously more people in the house market right now. And quite frankly, the house market right now is very, very tough. if you know, I know a lot of investors are paying 90-95% even to get just a remote deal. And that's not necessarily the case in land. I will say this, here recently in the last 6 months to 7 months or so, we have adjusted, making a little bit slightly higher offers than we were making, just because people realize real estate's a little bit hotter now. Now, doesn't mean that we don't start lower, just means that sometimes we have to go up in the end in the final phase of getting it. Another thing is there's no inspections or termites with land. That's a great thing. I know in getting houses, you can get a house and then get you make one offer based on what you think the repairs may be, and then you find out there's a whole lot more issues. And some of those issues rolls into the other point. There's no roof, foundation, plumbing, electrical, or mold issues. Those are some big ticket items. Now, the mold issues didn't really scare me, but it scares a lot of people. There's ways to remediate that and get that taken care of. Also with land, there's usually 99% of the time, there's no tenants to worry about. So what's good about that is you're not having to sit there and worry about, well, if I show this house, it's got a tenant in it right now, it's going to be hard for me to show it to other prospective buyers. It's hard for me to even get in it. That's not the case in land. Matter of fact, when people ask me, can I go see the property? I tell them, yeah, you're welcome to go see it at 12 noon or 12 midnight. It's totally up to you. Don't advise midnight, but it's totally up to you. And you can go at your own convenience. I don't need to be with you. What we do, we actually give them the address of the property if it has it. If not, if there's a nearby property address, we'll give that to them. But we also give them the GPS coordinates to the property so they know they're at the right place. And we can even give them the GPS coordinates to each corner of the property. If they wanted to walk it, they could literally hold their phone in their hand. It's one of the cheapest types of real estate to buy with some of the highest profit margins. We'll say that. Like I said, houses are really expensive now. Have always been more expensive than land deals. Now you can get expensive land deals, but the profit margins are better. For example, I had a property yesterday, literally, was on the market, had a call. The guy said, look, I want to buy it today. I'll give you, what you're asking for it. Never tried to negotiate or anything. And quite frankly, we've got that property. I think we're probably making 75% on it. I think we got it at $5 grand and we're selling it for 10 grand or 15 grand. So it's a 10 grand profit on that property. And then you get some higher ones and then and things like that. I had one student literally made $185,000 or $89,000 on one deal. Now that's not common, but he made that on that. Another thing is you can't steal or destroy land for the most part, other than, somebody dumping things on it. And I'll give you a good example of that. You get people that comes out there to a house. They may steal the copper. They may steal, if you got building supplies out there, they may steal that. The only thing that you may steal off of my property is you may take a dump or a wheelbarrow out there and fill it up full of dirt, but that's fine. I got plenty of dirt. It's not going to, break the bank if you take a small load of dirt. It's a higher rate of return on mailers also. That's a great thing I like as well. And when I say rate of return on letters, that's kind of in the comparison I talked about, a little less competition in land than houses. Houses, if you get a 0.5% to 1% return, and what I mean return on mailers is leads on that particular mailer, you're doing pretty good. So out of every 100, if you can get one person to call you, you're doing great on houses. Land, typically it's anywhere from 2.5% up to, I've had 7-8% in a leads back on it. So it also depends on your mailers. Now, a lot of times, and we'll get into this further on down the road, but a lot of your initial mailers are what we call test mailers. So they may be a smaller mailer, so you may not get that larger percentage, because percentages obviously is all based on numbers. The larger number of mailers I send out, the more leads that I should get back in. So that's the higher rate of return on mailers. What else makes land great? Well, it's profitable. We talked about better profit margins. You don't have to pay not only 70%. That was the great days when you could pay just 70% of value to get a piece of, or a house under contract. A lot of times we're getting them at 10% or less. You know, my formula basically is, if you had a house or a piece of land that's valued, let's say 10,000 for easy numbers, my thought process, and we'll get into the marketing aspect a little bit more later on, my thought process is I want to sell that below market value, about 25% less. So that's going to be $7,500. Now I may offer on that property, you know, 20%, maybe 25% of the retail value. So if that retail value was 10, I offer 25%. I'm at $2,500. I sell it around 75. That's a $5,000 profit. Just and again, that's just small numbers, just to keep it easy, since it's late in the evening, my mind doesn't work as well. But I've actually had a negotiation where I offered a guy several $1,000s for a piece of property, came back, it had some issues. We kept going back and forth, and I kept dropping what I was going to offer him. And then he stopped me in the middle of the negotiation. And he said, just let's stop going back and forth. Which I thought, this means the deal's going to be dead. He ended up saying, look, Mike, just take the property. I would rather just give it to you, do what you need to do with it, and it gets it off my plate. It's not a headache for me anymore. So I picked the phone back up and I thought, oh, wow. So that's what we did. He gave it to me, or I gave him $1 for it, just to make it easier for my accountant. But that's what we did. Also, land doesn't require a lot of maintaining. And what I mean by that, you know, you have to cut the grass pretty often in the summer. If it's a house that you've got, there may be other issues. You may need the power on and things like that. The land can sit there, unless it's an infield lot that you may, if you're holding on to for a while, you may have to have the grass cut, but very, very rarely does that even come up. They're great passive income properties. What I mean by that is that you can create a lot of owner finance deals. Whereas a house, if you do an owner finance deal on a house, let's say you're going to sell it to a buyer for a low price of $100,000 or $95,000, which is almost unheard of now, but you're in it for $60,000, $70,000, maybe more than that, and they can put down a $20,000 down payment. You're still somewhere around $40,000, $50,000 in the hole with your own money on that owner finance deal. So it's going to take you probably years to even get even with your money getting back on that type of owner finance deals. Most of my owner finance deals, the down payment that buyers pay me covers the actual price that I'm paying for the property. So if I've got the property, let's say for $5,000, I'm selling it for $30,000, and they end up putting $5,000 or $7,000 down, whatever it may be, they've covered what I would have to lay out to buy the property. So I literally no money out of pocket, and I'm financing that, and it's monthly cash flow for our business. That happens a lot. And you know, the most I will go, I have went a year on a big deal, get my money back. But my rule of thumb is I really don't want to go much past 6 months in breaking back even with what I've spent out. So that's great. Matter of fact, our company right now in July, the month of July, I worked very little. I especially this month, I had some personal things going on. Plus we were at our beach house most of the month. So I didn't do emailers. I didn't do a whole lot, but because we've got so many owner finance deals, passive income coming in, it takes care of the whole entire business. It takes care of all the expenses of business. salaries to people, all that stuff. So that's really cool in that, my business keeps going. What I like about that, I'm not having to chase that next deal like you have to a lot of times when you're just doing cash deals. Now, I love the cash deals, don't get me wrong, but I like both. Another good thing about this, you can do it full-time, part-time, remotely, anything like that. Most people start out part-time. I've got several students that start out part-time, and now they've actually given up their other businesses. Some of them lost work during COVID and really dived really deep into their business, and they're literally not going back to their jobs. They're making more money in the land business. That's great. So that's something that you can do. You also remotely, when I say you can do it remotely, I literally did a deal earlier this month sitting on the beach. I have anybody that wants to buy a property, they actually call me, comes directly to my phone, and I handle it. And I literally, person called asking to buy a property. We went back and forth. He said, I'm really interested. I want to make an offer. He made an offer. A little bit of back and forth. Long story short, I literally sold that property while sitting on the beach under an umbrella with an adult beverage in hand. So that you can do this anywhere. And when I say you can invest anywhere in the world, I have a business partner. He spends part of his time in Uganda, that's in Africa, and he spends part of his time in the Azores, or the islands right off Portugal. He invests in properties and buys and sells properties. So those are things that you can do this a lot easier. Whereas a house, if you can look at pictures of a house, and I'll give you a prime example. I've looked at pictures of floors of houses. They look level. And then I go in there and I'll walk on them, and they're spongy or bouncy, whatever you want to think of. And they literally just bounce up and down. It's crazy. It's insane. The floor joist issues that you have to deal with. So that's something to think about also. What else I got here? We covered everything on that one. So why do people let land go at such deep discounted prices? Well, there's a couple reasons they do that. Sometimes they're tired of paying taxes on it. Believe it or not, most properties I get under contract, 75+% do not have back taxes. Sometimes some of those reasons is that the taxes aren't as much on land as they are on houses, so they can afford to pay it, and they would rather pay it than have their names printed in the newspaper or risk the actual thought of losing their properties. The one we bought pretty recently ago literally was about ready to go to the foreclosure auction. Those people were losing it. And we took it off, and they made a couple $100. We gave them a couple extra $100, whereas they were not going to get anything out of that property. So it was a win-win for everybody. And I get the question sometimes, do you focus on just tax foreclosure properties? I don't. Quite frankly, I hate tax foreclosure properties. They're just aggravating. And if I only focused on those, then I would miss out on 75+% of my other deals I do. So I don't want to just focus on 20-25% of the deals. I want all of them. So I just mail everybody. People aren't necessarily as emotionally attached to a house as they are or land as they are a house. In land, most folks will be able to let it go a little easier. I'll give you a prime example. You make a lowball offer on grandma's house, where the person may have played in the yard growing up, had their first bicycle ride there, things like that. A lot of emotion attached to it. So, they don't want to let it go. It's insulting to them. Now, grandma may own 25 acres across the street. That they don't have that same emotion attached to it. It's not as big of a deal to them. And I understand that. I get that. You know, a house has a lot more of the emotional attachment, whereas just a land is just a piece of property, so they're not as attached to it. So the lower offers, they're more likely to take, and plus they're also not going to be offended. Um, some's never seen it, and what do I mean by that? That means some people have as inherited properties. It's been passed down, you know, through the years by different family members, and they've never been there. They may live in California and got property here in North Carolina. They've never been there, and they have no intentions of being there. So why do they need to hold on to that? There's no need to, no need to for them to hold on to it. They need to go ahead and let it go. Um, and you think just because they have a piece of property, they would know to call a realtor and have it listed, but not everybody does. You got to keep in mind, we're all students of real estate, so we know a little bit more than some of the average folks that may not even realize that, believe it or not. Another thing is life changes. I know that's a big one with Florida properties. You have people that had dreams of them and their spouse building a house in Florida and retiring down there and living out their years down there. And maybe one of the spouses have passed away, or maybe the financial end of their business is completely changed. Maybe they have a total different financial picture now that doesn't allow them to go down there, and maybe they've chose to go somewhere else. So that's a thing, and they don't know how to get rid of it. Just like we were talking about, we know we call a realtor or list it ourselves or something. Some people gets that property, and especially those that live away from it, it's like, what am I going to do with this? How do I get rid of it? Does anybody even want it? So those types of things. So that actually helps us out in things. Types of land. There's different types of land. We classify land in a couple different things, just for an easier understanding, if you will. Typical building lots, sometimes we call it infill lots. That may be neighborhoods that have been built out, but there's one or two lots left that either, you know, whoever owns them ended up not building there. Again, it could be life changes, that sort of thing. Those could be infill type lots, or established neighborhoods or new neighborhoods, those type of things. Another big one, and one to think about, and we'll get into when we're talking about where to look for properties, is lots or acreage in passive growth. And what do I mean by passive growth? Paths of growth are areas where the area is growing in that direction. San Antonio and Austin, Texas is a prime example of that. When you think about that, it's those two cities are literally growing together, and there's like 10, 12, 13 counties they encompass between those two cities. So all of those areas of growth in between there. Now I'll go ahead and tell you, there's a lot of people has already started getting on that bandwagon. So it's not, don't everybody go and try and invest there. But that's some of the areas of growth, and try to look and see which ways the growth is going from an area. For example, Atlanta is in Fulton County, Georgia. I don't want to mail Fulton County, Georgia necessarily, unless I'm really from there and I can work it a little bit better. But I may want to look at the surrounding counties, 1, 2, maybe even 3 counties out, because people may be wanting to live there. The property may be cheaper in those areas. Not that you can't get some deals in Fulton County, because I have students that do, but more of your deals may come from some of the surrounding counties. So think about that. I live in the Charlotte, North Carolina market, where Mecklenburg County is. You can draw a circle around Mecklenburg County, 2 counties out. Any of those areas are growth areas, because the city is growing, or the county is growing in all directions. Probably more so east than west, but there's a study. Well, I know so because east, there are probably 30, 40 subdivisions never even broke ground yet. It's all passive growth. So you would even want to go beyond that to get ahead of that path of growth. Also, if you get right where the stuff's happening, sometimes you end up, people realize what they have and they don't want to sell it at a discounted price. Because remember, you're an investing company. You're not wanting to sell it or buy it at retail, because then you can't get rid of it. So here. So yeah, just look at areas that where the growth may not quite be there yet, but you can see that it's heading in that direction. Another one is the large parcels or acreage of properties. And this may be a recreational property, farmland development. If it's recreational property, you get people. I know, like for example, in the North Carolina mountains, people want to have a piece of property they maybe can put their camper on or mobile home on, those type of things. Some of the larger parcels, that can be desert properties, whatever, but larger parcels that people want to ride ATVs on and just have a place to go on the weekend to kind of just, cut loose and have some fun. Hunting property, people are looking for properties to hunt on. So this could be another avenue of properties. And these are the different, when you're looking at getting properties under contract, these are things to think about. Your end buyers. It may be somebody that's looking to camp on the weekends or ride ATVs or hunt on the properties. It may be that it's going to be a farmer, a farmland property. It's not just regular farmland. You think about crops and things like that. Think outside the box. Think of tree farms. Think of solar farms. Solar farms are a big thing right now. Windmill farms. I've got we have a mastermind group, and we literally actually have a member of our mastermind that's involved in solar, or not solar, but in the windmill thing, but it's in the ocean, believe it or not. Just a different, it's some new thing. But just think outside the box, the tree farms, solar farms, things like that folks may use it for instead of just the regular farmland. That's important too. Development, that's another thing. You have developers that may want to develop some residential development. What do I mean by residential development? To build neighborhoods, looking at building neighborhoods. It may be something that the more you get versed into your business, you may have a piece of property that you literally want to cut. Let's say you've got a 20-acre parcel and you want to divide it into 1-acre parcels. It's probably going to be worth more money as 1-acre parcels, and you can sell 20 of them than one just 20-acre piece of property. So those are things you can think about. You may not be building the houses on it, but you may subdivide them out. It takes a little bit of work, but it's not an impossible task to do. Commercial development, that's the other thing. If you get into some commercial property, it may be somebody's wanting to build a strip center or a gas station or restaurant, store, whatever it may be in the commercial development. I know we have a piece of commercial property that we've got marketed right now. So, you're always thinking about your end buyers. Next question you get a lot of times is, pull it up here, is where do I want to invest? Is there some areas better than other areas? Well, yeah, there are some areas of the country I think is a little easier to do than others. But growing areas is where you want to invest. And that may be in the Southeast, it may be in the Northeast, Midwest, Southwest, Northwest, really wherever. I will say the Northeast is a little more difficult just because their records, and we're getting ready to talk about this, are a little not as user friendly as some other areas. Also keep in mind in California, Oregon, Washington State, those are expensive states. And for example, in California, the taxes and things to operate out there is a little more. So think about those aspects too. You can do some deals out there, but it may cost you, the closing costs and things like that may be a little more there. Yeah. Next thing is, so where do I find this information about where to invest? There's a couple things you can do. Internet is one place that you can go to see that it's good areas. Google will give you all answers you need. News shows. What do I mean about news shows? Maybe they're doing a thing on how the city is developing this particular way. Actually, 20-year plans. Cities do plans, 10, 15, 20-year plans. Counties do the same thing. So, for example, you may have a city that if you look at their master plan, their future growth plans, you may see areas that are woods now, but they got street names already laid out and things like that. That's future growth that may be happening in 10, 15, 20 years. Now, you're not wanting to hold the property that long, but there may be an avenue to make some money on that property even right now. Articles, look at different articles, investor groups, Facebook groups, things like that. That's where you can find some of that information as well. Another thing you can think about is, and I think we do this later on, but I'm going to do it also right now. When you look at an area, there's a couple different things that I look at, and that's Zillow and datausa.io. Questions? Anybody have any questions right quick? I'm thinking about it. If not, you pull up a page here. Share this with you. See here. Okay. So we're going to share Zillow. Everybody should be able to see Zillow. And I'm just going to take a random county. I'm going to do Polk County, Florida. No rhyme or reason. It's just what comes to my mind. Polk County, Florida. You may be saying, well, what are you looking at here, Mike? Well, I'm going to show you what I'm looking at to see if this is a good area. Home type, I want to deselect all. I just want it to be land. Now, I also can go over here, and now if I'm looking at properties to make offers, I don't necessarily narrow this down, but when I'm looking at areas to invest in, I may start at 24-month period and see what's sold. So Polk County, Florida, outside Tampa, there's 3,962 properties that has sold in the last 24 months. That's pretty impressive. Let's see what's currently for sale there. Done. 500 agents, 75 others. So 575 properties are for sale in that county. If you notice, things are happening all throughout the county. It's not just one little corner, anything like that. So that's good. I know that everything's happening everywhere. I don't need to target a mailer, so to speak. So that's some unique things. I like that aspect of it. So another thing I may want to know is maybe I need to know how that county is as far as the economics of it, because what I don't want to do is get in a county that doesn't have the correct economics of it. Let me stop sharing this for 1 minute and pull up something. Pull up. I want to do something else for you also with this little exercise. Bear with me. So we're looking at Polk, and maybe we're going to look at Lord also. Okay. Push that down. Share again. Okay, that's the Florida map. You don't really need that. datausa.io. This is where I get economic information. datausa.io. If I put in Polk County, Florida, I gotta spell it right first. There it is. Auto populate there. So this gives me some really good information. Now I can scroll down and have a lot of different information. It breaks this down a little bit. This information may be a year or so behind just because they have to put everything together. Population 700 plus thousand. There's 2.37% growth in that. That's interesting. Median age is 40.2. That's it. That's good to know also. And the reason for that is because with the 40.2, that means that's a family at that point. So they're maybe ready to buy a lot where they can build their forever home later on. No real change there. 3% growth in the employed population. Look at median property value, 2019, 8.74% growth. A little less than 1% growth in household income. It's 51,000. The average is in the country is 53,000. Poverty rate it's a 4.6% decrease. That's pretty cool. I want to always keep that below 20% if I can. If it jumps over it, it's okay. I just want to look a little deeper and see what it is. Now, let's say that I looked at Brevard County. We're not going to look at those numbers, but that's another county that had good numbers that I'm thinking that I would want to do something in. So the cool thing is this ag comparison, Brevard County, Florida. This thing working right. What it's going to show while that's coming up, it's basically sitting those two counties side by side. Here we go. So this is some really good information. And I like how it does this. If you'll notice, you got 600 population, 700. So Polk County is a little bit bigger. Median age is a little bit older, 47. That's good though. That's okay. Poverty rate's lower. Median household income still pretty close. There's a little bit of a percent decline. Property values are a little bit more there. There's 50,000 more there, but there's also 3.25%, where over here there's 8.74% growth. 3.5% or 3% growth in the employee population, where it's less than one here. So both counties are good. You could do either one, but you would just decide which way you'd want to lean toward and kind of go for that. Now, if you were going to look at Brevard County, do that since we're here. So Brevard County has 500 agent plus 123, 623 properties for sale in the 24 month. Sold 5,216. That's more than even the Polk County had. Let's say you wanted to explore that a little bit more. Let's see what's happened in the last year. You can do that as well. You can break this down in the last 12 months. 3,500 in the last 12 months. So there's a lot of activity there. So I may actually go to this county first, since there's more activity here, even though Polk County is really good activity going on there also. So that's things to think about. Let's see here. Pull up this again. So we've got the different growth areas and that sort of thing to think about. This over. But Google, again, the internet does all that stuff for you. It shows you different ways to look at properties and where maybe a good area to start investing would be. Again, that's just some different avenues to do it. And then we'll get into what we just did is how to determine what a good area is, the growth rate based on the information gathered. Again, the Zillow thing and the economic data on datausa.io. And I look at the economic data because I may have a county that's doing really good on sales or whatever. And then I look at economic data and they have a 20% unemployment rate. Well, then there's an issue there because people aren't going to be able to necessarily buy there. Also, I want to make sure the combined number of properties for sale and the combined number of properties sold equal at least 500. Now, obviously, with those two counties we looked at, it's in the thousands, so it wasn't a big deal. But what I don't want to see is 150 that's sold and 75 that's on the market. There's just not a lot of activity there. I probably would bypass that. Another thing I don't want, let's say, 1,000 properties for sale and only 300 sold. I want to be more level, more in line with one another, maybe 850 for sale and 1,000 sold, something like that. Get kind of close. Now, if I have 2,000 sold and only 500 on the market, I'm good with that because that means there's a supply and demand there. There's people that's selling properties. There's not a lot of properties for sale right now there. People are selling what is there. So that's fine. I just don't want my for sale numbers to be more than my sold numbers. You got to test your areas. And what do I mean by that? It's pulling a list. That may be through a list source. That may be through the county, wherever it may be. And we send what's called test mailers. And what's a test mailer? A test mailer is something, we get into it a little deeper later in the mailer areas, but basically it's somewhere between 500 and 1,000 letters you want to send out. I always encourage 1,000 letters at least to be sent out, even in a test mailer, if you can. What you're looking at, and I always start with out-of-state owners first. Now, I may not have 1,000 out-of-state owners that's got land in a particular county, so I may have to put some in-state people in there too. If I do in-state, I don't mind mailing to in-state. What I don't want to necessarily do is mail to in-state sellers that also have the same mailing zip code as the property does. The reason being is sometimes that may be a property right beside their property or right across the street. So I want there to at least be a zip code difference. And in a lot of counties, there's multiple zip codes. So it may be, I just don't want them to put the property right there together. But again, your out of state people are your first ones you want to go after. Mail that 500, 750,000 mailer list out, see what calls you get back and evaluate your responses. Did I get decent responses? The people that called back, how did they act? Did they tell me a lot of people's marketing this area? Did they were they receptive with the things I asked or the offers that I sent out? Things like that. You just evaluate an area, because what you may end up doing, there may be 3,000-4,000 other mailers within that county that you can mail out. But now if you get nothing on 1,000-piece mailer, you may not want to mail the rest. But if you get a fair response, then you may want to mail the rest out, because even 1,000-piece mailer and there's maybe 4,000, total pieces that you can mail, you're only mailing at 25% if you're mailing 1,000. So keep that in mind. And then if you're mailing only 500, then you're only mailing what, 12.5%, something like that. So the more you mail, obviously the better your response rates are. That's just some things to think about on that aspect of it. Another thing you need to do is you got to create a business. And this is what some people may call the boring stuff, but it's things you got to do. And there's a couple steps in creating your business. I like the Colby test. Everybody in our groups take Colby tests in our mastermind groups and things like that. I took it and learned a lot about myself. And I'm a detail oriented person. I'm like a 8 of the first number. There's a series of numbers you look at on that. Take some of them personality tests, see what you are. If you're detailed oriented, you may want a detailed business plan before starting. You may want to have your LLC going, your address, your phone system, your budgets, all that stuff. It doesn't take long to create all that, but you may want all that written down or a game plan. I'm big about that. I can list 4, 5, 6, 10 goals for the year, but I may have, 15, 20 steps on how to get to each one of those goals. It's a little detail oriented. Now, if you're less detail oriented, you're not going to sweat the details. You're just ready to jump out and go. You just may want to send a mailer out and let's see what we can get going. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with this approach. Just keep in mind, at some point you have to create your business and things like that. But Colby.com, I encourage you to take that. You'll learn a lot about yourself and how you look at things and see things. And if you're married or you have a significant other, have them take it too. See and compare. I'm more detail oriented than my wife is. So she's more about, let's just go with it. And I'm the one that's got to have a game plan. So you learn how to combat that with one another. Things to consider when building a real estate business. A couple different things. The creation of LLC. You don't really want it. You may start out in your name, but LLC is pretty easy to do. It's handled through the Secretary of State for whatever state you're in. You can normally go online and do it yourself. It's not very difficult, but you may also, I've had accountants create them for me. Attorneys create LLCs. There's, you can Google it. There's different companies out there that will create the LLCs for you. But I suggest by going to the Secretary of State website first and just go through it and see what you can do. Now, obviously, if you got a business, you got to have an address. I don't necessarily want my home address to be my business address. If I get somebody savvy that I'm mailing a letter to, I don't want to pull up my home address and say, well, he doesn't even have a real office or whatever. And there's other reasons for that too, safety issues also. But United or UPS store is one option. You got these stores, they may have a 123 Main Street address, and it's box or unit 1214, something like that. So it sounds like a regular business address. United States Post Office will actually allow you to do in some. You have to contact your local post office if you're looking at having an address at, if you go this route, that will allow you to do it as a street address. That, for example, mine, I can do that. It's 301 West Main Avenue, unit 416, and then the city, state, and zip code then. So I've got that where I can do that. The post office is a little bit cheaper, their box rates, than UPS store. And that's just the way I chose to do it. Some folks, my business partner, he has a virtual mailbox. It comes to it's I can't remember the address right off, but it's Sanford, North Carolina. That's where all his, and what happens is that it goes there. Those folks will scan in the mail. They'll open and scan whatever you want them to you. You can even get checks that way, because you can scan checks in and have them deposited and things like that. It's whatever it works for you, or maybe you do have an office area that you just want to send stuff to. But you just need, you're definitely, when you have an LLC, you are going to have a a street address also. Another thing you want to talk about or consider is taking seller calls. How am I going to take these calls? Am I going to, do I want them to come to my cell phone? Do I want somebody else to take these seller calls? Google Voice, I think they actually charge for Google Voice now, but it's a low amount. It's not a lot. But that's an option. If you have Gmail, you can get Google, you can get a Google Voice number. CallRail is another service where you get multiple lines. And that's something to think about, because what you don't want to do is have your sellers, and once you get property under contract and you start marketing them, you don't want buyers calling in on that same line. It's too confusing. One other aspect, you may have an additional cell phone. I have an additional cell phone. It only costs me 20, 25 bucks a month to have that extra line for a smartphone, and I use it in my business. There's also Skype phone numbers. I have VAs, virtual assistants I use. They use a Skype phone number because they're outside the country, but it gives them a way to communicate inside the country. So they use that. Maybe you don't want to take the calls yourself. Maybe you're working, you just don't have time. You can have them go to voicemail. That's one option. Or you may want to have a live person answer it. And you can do that through Pat Live. Landmaster.us is a VA service. It's their actual call center. It's called callme.ph.com, something like that, or .com.ph. Theirs is pretty good. Pat Live's a little pricey. It's probably their mid-grade is close to $300 a month, 250, something like that. The Landmaster's a little bit cheaper. If you go with one of those, provide them with a list of questions you want them to ask your person, and then they will either email that information. Hey, John Smith called. He's got one part, a parcel number. This property's an acre. There's electricity nearby. There's county water. It will need a septic system. Things like that. Now, you may not necessarily get all that information. That's a perfect world. As long as I got a parcel number, I can get the information I need to see what it may be worth. But they'll email that to you. If you have what we call a database system, customer management system, CRM, then they may be able to input it in that. You can give them access to input that. But what you want to do in these paying sites, it's by the minute that they're charging you, almost literally. I mean, you get a package with so many minutes, but to start going over, it's a per minute cost. So you want them to get on the phone with the seller that's calling in, get that information, and then get off the phone as quickly as possible. Another thing, it's not up there, but it may be a website. You may direct them also to go to a website. You got to have a phone system also, but also maybe a website where they can input their property information, and you'll get it sent to you, and you can evaluate it that way as well. I will say that a lower percentage goes that route, but you will have some if that's an option. Taking buyer calls are going to be basically the same. My buyer calls goes to a voicemail. It goes to one of the cell phones I carry, because I want to talk to all buyers. Now, it used to be I had it going to one of my virtual assistants, and he would actually qualify them. And what does it mean by that? That means seeing how interested they are. They ask them specific questions, and then I would get them. One thing on buyer calls, a lot of them are text, emails, or messenger. If it's Facebook Marketplace, is how they'll communicate with you. Another thing we didn't talk about really, I'd like to touch on it, is that in the world of marketing land, buying land, trying to get land, that sort of thing, is when these sellers call you and you get the information, I don't have to stop what I'm doing to get an offer out to them. I like to get to them in a timely manner, but basically the end line is, thanks for the information. We'll have an offer out to you in the coming weeks, or in the coming week. I don't put a specific timestamp. I'm not going to say I'm going to have an offer out to you in 2 days. I don't want, because if I'm bombarded with calls, which is not a bad thing, and then have to research that stuff, I'm not going to make that deadline. So I want to, you know, kind of leave that loose and open for them. But now if it's a house, if you were working houses, you better take that call yourself. You better get the information, and you better get an offer out to them within the hour. And contract times also. Contract times on land is anywhere from 4 to 6 months. I recommend trying to start out 6-month contracts with your seller. Houses, maybe 30 days, maybe 45 max that you've got to sell it. So if I get a property under contract and I got 4 to 6 months to sell it, you know, I don't have to drop everything. I was gone last week, a few days on vacation. I've got properties that needs offers sent out. I didn't have to drop everything to do it. I did them Friday. When I came back, I sent them out. Now all my mail goes out on Fridays anyway. So there's just some extra food for thought on some of the reasonings. Land is a little easier, not quite as chaotic. Couple other things you need is some sort of email. It can be Gmail, Yahoo, Hotmail. You know, there's all kinds of different sites. The buy sites or websites, you may have a buying site, and that's where we're talking about sellers can go to that and input their information, or a selling site where you sell your properties. And that's an example of one that we have. DeltaLandDeals.net is a site. And you also can build a buyer's list off of that, because in order to look at the property, they're registering themselves for it, which is a good way to build a buyer's list. Let's see what else we have here. I don't get too far ahead of myself. Yeah, so we're gonna make sure I got that. Website, selling site. Yep. So that's kind of a gist of some of the stuff that we've got going on as far as this first phase. I don't want to get, the next thing we're going to start talking about is obtaining a mailing list and cleaning that mailing list and getting it out and responding to seller leads and things like that. I don't want to get into that today, because I want to keep it, you know, a good stopping point with stuff. A couple things I'm going to answer questions here in a second, but I did want to let you know, we have a website. It's called startinvestingwithmike.com. If you're thinking about creating a business, or you've got one and you're not sure what your next steps are, if you'll go on that, you can, it's a link to mine and my business partner's calendar. If you could schedule a call with us, it costs you nothing, it's free, and we can talk to you about your business. What would help your business to get to that next level? What do you need to take it to that next level? I try to be on those calls as much as possible. My business partner handles some of them. He is as well versed as I am in real estate. He's done a lot of different things as well. But let us help you. If you have, you know, questions about growing it, or let us give you a kind of lay you out a roadmap, if you will, on that. So that's things to think about. Startinvestingwithmike.com. You don't have to go to that, but I always like to at least offer that to you. Questions? Anybody have any questions? Everybody knows everything. See here. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you all being on the call. We're going to get, this first session is trying to set up your business and looking at where you're going to invest in land. We're going to get really deep in the next couple classes, getting in deep and dissecting exactly what you need to do to make you successful in it, and that sort of thing. Here's one Jonathan's got. How do you come up with offer price of land? Be here in this is August, September. We're going to go into that. I'll give you kind of the lowdown of it. We look at different types of properties that are similar. What's sold, what's currently on the market, how much did they sell for, how much are the ones currently on the market for, how long they've been on the market, those sort of things that can help develop that price and offer. And I also will share some of the formulas that I use when we get to that phase. But yeah, we're going to get really deep into that. It's a really good question, because that's one of the most important aspects of your business, is coming up with the right offer price for a piece of property. So thank you for the question. That's something, my business, I've scaled it and I've grown out. I have virtual assistants that do things, but coming up with offer price, I still do that. That's still what I do, because I want to make sure nothing's textbook, obviously, so I can play with the numbers a little bit more. And we do have one joint venture group, because I do a lot of joint venture groups. We have somebody that can do comps, but he also shows me the comparable properties he looked at, come up with a price. That's another different thing that I do in my business. I have clients in Switzerland, Germany, Canada, and things like that. We work together in marketing properties together and things like that. So, but very good question. Other questions or comments?
I have one question,
Okay.
Mike. So what was the name of that personality test you mentioned earlier?
It's Colby, and I'll put it in the chat screen.
Okay, thank you.
It's Colby test.
Is it different from DISC?
I think it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see here. Copy. So yeah, I put it in the chat area. It really, believe it or not, it was pretty spot on with my personality, because I'll bring it up to my wife. She'll ask, why are you asking her a question? Well, that's my, you saw my Colby score. That's why I am. I'm detail oriented. She doesn't like that answer, but yeah, try it. Take the test. I don't know if there's a cost to it. If it is, I think it's pretty minimal. Awesome. Thank you again for everybody coming.
Thank you.
And like I said, we'll get into some of the dirt on how to pull lists and clean them, get them out, the most efficient ways to get them out, and some other avenues as well on our next call. Until then, I hope you all have a great week, a very productive week. Again, if you have any questions or you want to talk to us, startinvestingwithmike.com. Feel free to hop on that site if you want to. We'll help you with any questions also there as well. Thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you next month. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.